Hello, everyone. I'm Bill, and welcome to Bill's Odds and Ends. If this is your first time here, be sure and subscribe and click on that bell icon to be notified of all of my new videos. Also, give this video a thumbs up as it really helps the channel out. And now, on with the video.
All right, so welcome aboard, everyone. My name is Dan. I will be your safari guide this afternoon as we enter the Harambe Reserve. Is this anyone's first time with Kilimanjaro? All right, welcome aboard. It's my first time, too. No, just kidding. I've been doing this a while. Now, a couple of safety items before we do enter the reserve. Please, no standing at any time. It is very bumpy out here, as you can already feel. This is a real truck. I am really driving. I like to hit every single pothole possible. So to make sure you guys don't drop anything out the side or fall off yourself, please stay seated at all times. Your children are more than welcome to sit in your lap, but they must do exactly that. Sit. No standing at any time. No lifting them up. No passing them back and forth across the row, all right? Now, a couple of courtesy items before we do enter the reserve. Please, be respectful. We are entering these animals' homes. We are simply here to observe, not interact. So please don't call out these animals at any time at all. Please don't call out, whistle to them, anything like that. No kissing noises, none of that stuff, all right? Now, this first area we're entering is called the Little Eturi Forest. And as you can see, it's very lush with vegetation. It has lots of plants, trees, leaves, bushes, and other things for animals to hide behind. And the animals in this area are pretty good at hiding. When you look directly to your right, behind that tree right there, very small brown animal, that's known as a dikerbok. Dikerbok means diving buck. That animal is very good at running and diving and hiding in bushes and staying hidden from any other animal. And over there behind the bamboo bushes is a bigger brownish animal with stripes on its body. That's known as an okapi. And that okapi has something I like to call zebra pants. That's because they have zebra stripes on their rear end and also on their legs, but they're not actually related to zebra at all. Their closest and only living relative, in fact, is a giraffe. They have the same skeletal structure as a giraffe, they're just much shorter, and that's because they live here in the forest and they can't grow as tall. Now those stripes do play an important role in the animal's life, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. But first, look over to your left. You can see a rhino. This is a black rhino. I know that because of his size. He is very large, around 2,000 to 3,000 pounds. But believe it or not, he's one of the smaller rhino species in the world. And he's one of the only rhino species that actually live here in the forest. They like being hidden, they like being covered, and they like being secluded. So you very rarely find ever more than one at a time. And you can't see it because he's facing the other direction, but he has something called a prehensile lip. Prehensile means finger-like. So he's actually able to reach out with his top lip and grab things such as plants and bushes and trees and stuff that you see around you and feed it into his mouth. Because despite his large nature, he is still an herbivore, which is good news for us. Coming up on our left, I can see a couple of different antelope species. These kind of reddish-brown cinnamon-colored animals on the left are known as bongo, and they're one of the largest and heaviest antelope species in the forest. And then these kind of lighter gray brownish animals are known as greater kudu. They are one of the tallest antelope species in the forest. And if you notice, both these animals have very faint stripes on their side, kind of whitish. And those help the animal just like the okapi. So the bongo, the kudu, and the okapi, all at nighttime, have to worry about predators, because predators, a lot of them hunt at night. So to stay safe, those stripes mimic moonlight coming through the canopies of the trees. It breaks up the silhouettes of the animal and help them blend in and kind of just blend into their entire environment. It's an optical illusion that they use to stay safe and stay hidden. Now on the outskirts of this forest, you will find the Safi River. And the Safi River is very important because it's abundant with water. Anywhere in the world where there's water, there's life. Now keep an eye out on the bottom of the river here, because this is a common hangout spot for Nile hippopotamus. Can't guarantee we will see any, but hippos are bottom dwellers, meaning they like to walk along the bottom of the river. They can even sleep on the bottom of the river. And they are nocturnal, so they're mostly active during the night times. During the daytime, they're probably sleeping on the bottom somewhere. Oh, just kidding, there's one right there. On our left, you can see a hippo. Very large, very aggressive animal. Hippos are one of the most aggressive and territorial animals in all of Africa. But as you can see, they get along just fine with these big white birds on the left here. These are known as pink-backed pelicans, and they get that name because they have patches of skin on their back and ankles that turn a very vibrant, bright pink color during the mating season. You won't see that color right now because they are not in the mating season, but the fact that they are able to kind of share water and land with these hippos is pretty amazing, because hippos do not play well with any other animal. Now as we round this corner, we're getting ready to go over one of my favorite bridges in all of Harambe. And as we do so, we'll have to be very careful. Because as we cross this bridge, look down and to your left, and you'll see some Nile crocodile. And Nile crocodile are some of the largest crocodilians in the world, averaging around 16 feet long. That's almost half the length of this truck, and that's just an average. Crocodilians grow indefinitely their entire life, so usually the older they are, the bigger they are. Now those are crocodiles. Does anyone know how to tell the difference between a crocodile and an alligator? One will see you in a while and one will see you later. Now just kidding, it is the snout, or the mouth as we like to say. Alligators have a much more wide snout, kind of more rounded, looks like a big U shape, whereas crocodiles have a much thinner snout. Kind of tapers down to a point, looks like a V shape. Also, have you ever heard the term crocodile smile? It's just crocodiles, when they shut their mouth, you can still see their teeth. So it looks like they're smiling all the time, even though I guarantee you, they're not. Now, this next area we're about to enter is called the savannah. And you'll see it's a much different landscape than where we just were, and it's home to a much different type of animal. It's much more wide open. It stretches for miles and miles with little to nothing to hide behind it all. So the animals out here aren't going to be trying to hide like we saw those other animals were, like the antelope in the forest and those hippos in the river. They can stay sunk underneath that water for quite a long time. Out here, the animals are going to be more reliant on speed and agility. They'd be fast and agile to stay away from any potential danger they might encounter, and that includes the predators. The predators have to be fast and agile as well to hunt their prey. So to stay safe and stay healthy and to hunt, they have to cover very large amounts of distance in a very short amount of time. And we'll hopefully see a couple of examples of that as we cross the entire savannah. Now, for any of you that have never been on a safari before, don't just look for animals because that's boring. Sometimes you don't see the animals. Also look at the landscape. The landscape will tell you a lot about what lives here. For example, you see how this entire area, for the most part, except for these tall patches, looks mowed? Well, that's not us. We don't mow this landscape out here. That is nature's lawn mowers, known as the antelope species. So there's a lot of antelope species out here that graze on grass. And they nibble on grass about 75% of their day, and that's what keeps it nice and even out here. And now I also know there's some giraffe around here because of the trees. If you look at the canopies of the trees, you see how they're all kind of the same height? Well, that's the handiwork of the giraffe. These are acacia trees, which is one of their favorite food items. And the trees can only grow as low as the tallest giraffe because the giraffe will reach up with those long necks and tongues and strip all the branches and leaves off the trees. So hopefully we will see some giraffe around here soon. But if you look to your left, you can see a predator. On top of this den here, you will see a spotted hyena. Spotted hyenas are predators. They will hunt for their prey in packs, but they're also known to scavenge. They'll steal prey from other animals such as cheetahs or lions. That's because it's easier to steal than it is to hunt. But their packs that they form are matriarchies, meaning the females run the group. So the lowest ranking female is still higher ranking than any other male in this pack. But they are one of the least wasteful animals in all of Africa because they eat everything on an animal. Skin, bones, meat, everything on an animal. They leave almost nothing behind. Now on our left and our right, you will see some column-like things that are coming up. There's a couple on our right here. There's one very large one coming up on our left. These are known as African termite mounds. They're made out of spit, dirt, and feces, which I know sounds gross, but it makes great packing material. So dads, if you're looking to fix up the house, there you go. And it sits in the sun all day and bakes and becomes as hard as concrete. So hard, in fact, that most animals out here can use these little structures as scratching posts. They rub on them and scrub their little backs, and they can do that without these things cracking. That's how strong they are. And if you look to your left, you will see some very small animals. These are not babies. These are full-grown springbok. Springbok are some of the smallest antelope species in the world, but they are some of the fastest. These little guys can run up to 55 miles an hour. And their name Springbok literally means jumping buck, because from a standstill like you see here, they can jump consistently about 6 feet in the air. It's something we call pronking. But when they get running up to top speed of 55 miles an hour, these guys can leap up to 13 feet in the air. Which is pretty amazing. So they're very small, but very, very mighty animals. Also on our left, you'll see some black and gray animals. Those are known as wildebeest. More specifically, white bearded wildebeest, and also commonly referred to as gnus. And that's because they make a low guttural sound that sounds like meow meow. And that's spelled G-N-U if you were wondering. But they're most noted for the herds they make. That's kind of a small herd you see there. But once a year, wildebeest can come together and form something called a super herd, which can be over 1.5 million animals in a single herd. And they do that once a year for a couple reasons. Number one, they use the safety in numbers to birth all their young. Because it's much easier to birth your young when you have more adults protecting your babies. On our right here, you can see some more of those springbok as well, which are grazers. And another reason these wildebeest will form that super herd is sometimes water is very scarce out here on the savannah. So they'll migrate and look for more significant water sources. And they use the safety of numbers to do that as well. And these animals are also an antelope species that are grazers, but you'll notice their face is much longer. Not quite sure why that is. It's just a different adaptation to help tell them apart. Now, wildebeest means exactly what it sounds like in Afrikaans, wild beast. That's because the first person to discover them thought they looked very mean, very menacing animals. But they're not. They actually have a pretty mild temperament, and they're only dangerous when they start stampedes. And as I said, those are the lawnmowers of Africa. Ooh, coming up on our left, I can see the tallest land animal in the world. Coming up on our left are some giraffe. They are the tallest land animals in the world, reaching heights anywhere from 16 to 20 feet tall. And that's why a whole group of giraffe is called a tower, because they tower over every other animal. And you can see a whole tower of them over here on the left, with some of the longest necks and some of the longest tongues in the animal kingdom. But despite those long necks, they have the same number of vertebrae in their neck as we do. We have 7, they have 7. Theirs are just a lot bigger than ours. And their tongues, you can't see their tongues right now because they're not eating, but they do use their tongues like hands. They reach out and grab food items, and it helps feed them. And it helps clear any debris off their face, so their tongues are long enough to lick their own eyeballs and pick their own nose. Which I know sounds gross, but you do what you gotta do when you have no hands, right? So if you guys ever happen to get up close and get licked by a giraffe, make sure you wash that area, because you're probably covered in boogers. Now coming up on our left and our right, you'll see some knocked over and down trees. That's usually a good sign that we're entering elephant territory. That's because elephants are known as the landscapers of Africa. They knock over trees like you see here on the right, and they make way for new life to grow. They help recycle a lot of nutrients back to the ecosystem, and they help reset landscapes. As you see here, this was once full of foliage, and now it's cleared. And once the elephants move on, it will regrow into new life. So hopefully we will see an elephant around here sometime soon. If you look to your left, though, you can see Monkey Point, which is home to a monkey species known as mandrill. You can see a couple over there by the bushes. And these monkeys are some of the largest and most colorful monkey species in the world. But despite their large size, they are still monkeys, not apes. An easy way to tell the difference is monkeys have tails. Apes do not, and these guys still have tiny nubs of tails, but they count. You see them over there to the left, guys. Now, the males are the ones that are usually the most colorful, with the males getting a very bright red and blue coloration on their face that can actually get brighter and more vibrant the more excited they get. And as you just saw a baby jump up into the bush there, it's very cute. That baby's about 4 or 5 months old. Now, let's see if we can find some elephants. I have a favorite road I like to take to try and get up close to these elephants. Aha, see, oh. That's weird. The road's closed. But that's okay. You can see the elephants do have the ability to push large amounts of dirt into piles, as you see there. And that's why they're called the landscapers. They completely reshape the landscape completely by accident. I don't know if they do it on purpose, but they might have been the ones who knocked out our road there. No idea. But they are very important to the entire ecosystem out here. Now let's find another way out of here and see if we can eventually find some elephants. I hope we do. See, we found a bridge. No worries, we'll just scoot across this bridge and see what's on the other side. Even though this bridge looks kind of old. But that's okay. We should be fine, no worries. Don't worry about the bridge, guys. I'm sure it's totally normal. You know, those sounds you hear, I'm sure those are totally normal bridge sounds. You know, nothing to worry about. Oh boy. Okay. That's not normal for a bridge. Is everyone okay? That's never happened before. Is everyone okay? Okay, good. Nobody fell off, right? All right, good. I can't have another guy like Billy. We don't talk about Billy, so we'll keep going, keep searching for elephants. This is a good sign. These are the red clay pits, which are a very common hangout for elephants. Oh, yeah, look over to your right there. See those tusk marks in the clay? Elephants do rub their tusks in the clay. Gives them a little bit better self-defense by help sharpening their tusks, and they actually eat the red clay. Provides them with a lot of vitamins and nutrients they don't get in their normal diet. So hopefully we will find one around here soon, because you can see this landscape is still elephant territory by all that trampled land to our left. that clear landscape. Now, if we don't see any elephants, that's okay as well, because that's kind of indicative of what's going on here in Africa. We lose roughly 96 elephants a day here in Africa, so they're becoming a more and more rare sight. They're being poached with their beautiful tusks that you might have seen. They're made of ivory, and they're sold illegally in the black market. And farmers here in Africa don't like elephants, because elephants wander into farm territory, they eat the crops, and they trample the land. And as you can imagine, that makes the farmers very angry, because that destroys their livelihood. So they see these animals as pests, and they actively hunt them, and they get rid of them to try and protect their farms. But luckily, places like Harambe here, providing a safe place for these animals to live. Even though you don't see any, doesn't mean they're not around, they just could be elsewhere at this point. And we're helping educate guests like you and farmers, and letting them know that these animals are not pests. They're actually something we call a keystone species. That means without elephants, the entire landscape you see around you would potentially collapse, probably would. So it's very important that we keep elephants around for a long time, and we are trying our best to do so. So even though you don't see them, doesn't mean our work is not being done. Now, another way I know this is elephant territory is because that big tree right there. That big tree is known as the baobab tree, also commonly referred to as the tree of life, because it's swollen with about 10,000 gallons of water. And believe it or not, elephants can actually poke holes in the trunk of that tree and suck the water out. So those trees are basically big elephant juice boxes. I know. So coming up on our left here, you can see some flamingo. And these are greater flamingo. They are the largest and the lightest pink colored flamingo in the world. And does anyone know what turns a flamingo pink? Shrimp, yes, they eat brine shrimp, and brine shrimp have a compound in them known as beta-carotene. And that beta-carotene is actually what turns them pink, because they're a light gray color when they're born, but after about 2 or 3 years of eating that brine shrimp, they build up that beta-carotene and start turning that nice pink color. Now on our right here, you'll see some animals known as Ankole cattle. And they don't use those horns for aggression, even though they are very huge. They're not solid, they're porous. They allow blood flow to go to the top of their horns and back down, and as it does so, it can either cool off or heat up their blood, and in turn either cool off or heat up their body up to 15 degrees, which is pretty impressive. So those big horns you just saw are just basically 2 massive AC units on top of their head. They're very effective. Yeah, I wish I had a couple on those on top of my head, right? Now we'll continue our trek across the savannah and see what else we can find. Now, I don't see any animals, but I see signs of animals. If you look over to the left there in the middle of that field, you see that big mud pit? That's a good... Oh. Shh, you hear that? That's a lion. So a lion roar can be heard from over 3 miles away. And hopefully that means we will be coming up on some lion here soon. And despite what a lot of people will tell you, oh, well, we'll talk about the lions later. If you look over to your right there, you can see those rhino. And that's what I was going to say. That mud pit is a good sign there are a rhino nearby, because rhinos have very thick skin, up to 3 inches thick. But they can still get sunburned like you or myself. So they roll around in that mud, protects their skin from the sun, cools them off a little bit, and protects them from any of the biting bugs that might be out here in Africa. So even when the sun's going down like this and it's cloudy, they will still roll around that mud pit. That's probably where they're heading right now, actually. And those rhino that we just saw were right rhino. They're one of the largest and heaviest animals in the animal kingdom, up to 5,000 pounds. Oh, I see something up here on our left. Hiding in the shadows over there, you will see a cheetah. Actually, 2 of them. I see 2 of them. Now, these are the fastest land animals in the world, reaching speeds of up to 60 miles an hour in about 3 seconds, which is insanely fast. And I can't keep that speed up for very long, only about 30 seconds at a time. And that's because these animals are one of the only big cats that hunt during the day. So as they hunt, the sun beats down on their body and overheats them very quickly. And it takes a lot of energy to run that fast, so they can't keep that up for very long. Oh, yep, here we go. Now here are the Kobe rocks, and this is where we heard the lion roar coming from. Now, despite what a lot of people think, lion roars are not really aggressive. They're more of like a roll call. They can be heard up to 3 miles away, but that's not because they're trying to let everyone know they're the biggest, baddest dude here. It's actually letting them know that they're territorial. They call out to other prides and let them know, hey, this is my territory, back off. And if there's any lions that are out hunting, they're like, hey, this is our territory, where are you? It's kind of like a roll call, and both the females and males will do it back to each other. Now here's a male right there. Now both the males and the females have a very loud roar. So you see that big male there? He's got that big mane. That mane starts coming in around 3 to 4 years of age. It gets fuller, thicker, and heavier. And when it's full grown, that mane by itself can weigh up to 35 pounds, which is quite a lot of hair. See a male there and a couple of female, or I just see one female actually. And what they're doing is what lions do most of their day. They only sleep for about 4 to 6 hours out of their day, but they rest for about 20 hours out of their day. And they just lay around, not really do much. They'll actually become active, during the nighttime. That's when they're the most active, because that's when they hunt. And you can actually tell a lot about a male by his mane. The fuller it is and the darker it is, the healthier he is and the more attractive he is to females. So you can see that big guy right there is a bit of a stud muffin. And even though we only see 2 lions right now, a pride of lions can have up to 15 cats in it. It's usually a couple males and a lot of females. Oh look, there's another female. She's still passed out. That roar did not wake her up at all. But they do hunt at nighttime because they have the cover of darkness on their side. It's much cooler out, so they use less energy. And their eyesight is about 6 times better than most other animals during the nighttime. So they have a serious advantage over most other animals. Now coming up on our right, you will see those animals that I saw some of you pointing out earlier. This one animal is very small. It has a white buttocks. That's known as a bontebok. And bontebok are very rare. They were nearly hunted to extinction. Back in the 1800s, there's only about 17 of them left in the entire world. Now they come back to a couple hundred, but not very many. They only exist in reserves such as this one. They are extinct in the wild. You can see some more of those white rhino over there. Very large animals. You can also see some water buck. That's the shaggy gray animals over here. They have that shaggy fur to help wick water off their body because they like to hang out and drink large amounts of water, which is kind of weird for most antelope species. And on the ground there, you can see a cluster of eggs. Those are ostrich eggs. And ostriches have the largest birds in the animal kingdom, so they obviously have the largest eggs in the animal kingdom. And you're probably wondering why the ostriches are not sitting on those eggs. Well, there's not enough there. I only counted about 6. And ostriches wait until there's enough eggs to cover with their entire body, which is usually closer to around 14 or 15 eggs. So once that nest accumulates more eggs, which they only lay one at a time, they will start to sit on those eggs and to incubate them and hopefully produce some baby ostriches. And now we're entering the Magadi Glen, which is home to a few animals. Only a few though, and hopefully they're around this afternoon. Let's see, keep your eyes peeled. If you don't see anything, don't worry. It is crepuscular hours, which means early sunrise and early sunset. And animals like to hunt during that time, especially in this area. So if you don't see anything, they're probably off trying to find their dinner. And I don't see anything. Do you guys?
Yeah, I do.
What'd you see? I saw water. That's okay. Alright, so that's about going to do it for our safari today, friends. We're going to start heading back to base. But I hope you all enjoyed. Hope you had fun. Hope you learned something. And I hope you feel inspired now to protect these animals. Because unfortunately, most of the animals that we saw today are either threatened or endangered. Meaning, if we don't do anything to help them or protect them, they could go extinct in our lifetime. Cease to exist. And we don't want that to happen. So an easy way to help out animals here in Africa is actually to recycle our cell phones. Most of our modern cell phones have a compound in them known as coltan. That coltan is found primarily here in Africa through a process known as strip mining. But that strip mining is very destructive to a lot of homes for these animals. It's one of the main responsibilities for habitat loss. And without a proper habitat or home, these animals can't survive. It's nearly impossible. So if you guys decide to get a new cell phone, or you're just going to get rid of your old one, or you upgrade, whatever you do, go ahead and recycle your old one. It's actually pretty easy to do. And that way we can reuse the coltan we already have in our possession instead of strip mining and destroy more homes in the process of trying to find more. It's a small effort, but it's a very easy effort, and no effort is ever too small when it comes to conservation. So never think that your effort doesn't matter, because I guarantee you that it does. Now, once these trucks get out of our way, we will be docking and dropping you back off in the Harambe village. And I really hope you guys did enjoy your safari. If you did, once again, my name's Dan. And if you didn't, just remember, names aren't that important. But as we're waiting, that you can feel free to ask any questions you might have at this time about any animal. It doesn't have to be African, it can be any type. If not, that's okay too. closer.
This has been an odd production. Thanks for watching.